The aircraft, I can't imagine the pressure he's feeling to look normal, to give a thumbs up, to look like everything is fine, to get to the aircraft under his own power, wave to the cameras and be off, no matter how he happens to feel or how symptomatic he is right now. Just briefly, while Carol was talking, we saw the shot change and we see people at the aft end of the aircraft waiting for the departure, Secret Service and the like, and the president's still photographers. So this will be interesting, and we'll look for any activity in and around the base of the helicopter if this indeed is going to be our view for the duration. I would call your attention only again to the two legs of the dismounted Marine at his or her post at the bottom of the air stairs in the forward part of the chopper. Nicole?
You mentioned Secret Service. There have been reports, I think, before and after the rally in Tulsa, where they were experiencing a surge. At least two members of the president's advance team, which included two Secret Service agents, became infected with coronavirus. And overnight, Mike Schmidt of the New York Times reported on a larger outbreak than even that at the Secret Service training facility. Mike, what can you tell us about how the Secret Service is faring?
So the Secret Service is an agency that does not have a lot of room for error in terms of staffing. If some of their agents and officers go down, it can really put a strain on the organization. On top of that, the Secret Service has another challenge that many law enforcement agencies across the country have, and that's the fact that to do their job, they have to come in contact with other people. It's almost mutually exclusive to do protection and social distancing at the same time. And the other thing about the Secret Service that's made it even more challenging is that we're in the middle of a presidential campaign, and they're at the whims of politicians that want to travel. And they're at the whims of someone like the president who wants to have a rally in, say, a large enclosed area with thousands of people. So the agency really being taxed in a way that has never before, and taxed in ways that, look, the pandemic is a difficult thing for the local police department. It's a difficult thing for the FBI, but it's been even more difficult for the Secret Service. And we reported today that in August, there was an outbreak at the Secret Service training facility. This is the place where they have officers and agents up and coming, where they teach them basically how to do their jobs. And to do your job as a Secret Service agent, it means learning how to grapple with people. It means learning how to manage crowds. And it was at that facility that at least 11 people tested positive last month. That was, look, it's a very large agency with thousands of people, but it showed the difficulties that this agency has had as it's tried to confront the pandemic.
And Brian, it's just another reminder that this president, in trying to carry out a White House and a presidency that isn't in the grips of a pandemic, has potentially exposed so many people to a pandemic. I mean, the events never feature social distancing. The chairs, you and I have watched these events together, are as close to one another as they are for any normal White House at any normal time. And as Mike's reporting, the Secret Service goes everywhere he goes, which in a lot of cases is into places grappling with COVID surges of infections of their own.
The Secret Service couldn't be closer to the president. With some presidents in some crowd environments, it is not at all uncommon. The group around the president is called PPD, Presidential Protection Division. For the team leader, the agent in charge, to grab the president by the belt up under their jacket in case they needed to be jerked down or out of a dangerous situation. They're in the limousine. They're on the aircraft. They're in crowds. They, by their job description, are alongside and close to the president. They work long shifts. It's unglamorous work. And that's for the luckiest agents in the country who get to make it to the Presidential Protection Division. Others are not so fortunate and get often, if they're connected to a presidential travel detail, get the tedious work of an overnight standby shift in a hotel hallway. But anyway, you're right
Running the mags, yeah.
to feature them because we don't often get to know their names. They all have families and loved ones at home. They're all in this peril by dint of their job description.
That's right, and we are still watching this live picture of Marine One. I wonder, Brian, if what you articulated a moment ago is at play. The president, always so aware of the television production aspect of this, now like 7 million other Americans infected with the coronavirus, and dealing with knowing that whatever image is projected on that walk from the residence to Marine One will be projected around the world instantaneously.
Yeah, I think we have every reason to believe that this hyper-aware president who came to the presidency after 14 seasons of a reality show produced by our very parent network is going to be hyper-aware of the power of pictures in this instance. We're getting still some late in the afternoon sun. It's fortunately a beautiful, clear autumn day in Washington, D.C., and I'm quite certain, Nicole, that they are putting every effort into what looks like an afternoon stroll out to a helicopter. It just happens to be the start of a trip to the hospital for this president. I'm really eager to see what else our camera at this lockdown position, which is shooting from a great distance away. You see the waviness in the live pictures. I'm really eager to see what else we can see from our vantage point. We're scurrying. You see the White House photographers are on foot and angling to get their shots of the president. So the president will come into the airframe. The president's captain's chair is on the far side of the aircraft as we are looking at it. The minute the air stairs are up and the door is closed, our first signal that they're getting underway will be the rotors starting to move. And then after liftoff, we should see it joined by a second chopper whose job it is to linger in the area, and then both of them fly in tandem over to Andrews. Forgive the interruption, but he is now on board.
No, thank you for that. Go ahead, Ben Rhodes.
Well, I was going to say, Nicole, you recall that you and I were on different sides of a campaign in 2008 when there was a financial crisis. And there were open lines of dialogue between the McCain campaign and the Obama campaign. And in fact, there was even a meeting at the White House that Senator McCain and Senator Obama participated in together. And so even in an unstable situation, the global economy collapsing, because our campaigns had open lines, there was an uncertainty. I think right now the uncertainty is the complete lack of transparency out of this White House, the preliminary rejection of the legitimacy of the election, that had already begun to take place. So I think what introduces this extra layer of instability is not that our system can't handle it. Our system was designed to handle crisis. Our system was designed to handle uncertainty. Our constitutional norms are designed for that. The unpredictable factor is a White House that has not been forthcoming, that is not in open communication with their opponent, and I think it's imperative that the Trump and Biden campaigns have an open line to discuss these things, have an open line to discuss what the last month of the campaign will be, have an open line to discuss things like debates, which obviously are not likely to happen now, and what the tone of that election is, because we really need to stabilize this country. I mean, there are too many things happening at once. We've got a pandemic, we've got a sick president, we've got a Supreme Court nomination, we've got all kinds of circumstances in our streets. We need to calm the waters now.
Brian?
So we're waiting for liftoff from the South Lawn here, and Nicole, you and I have both seen this many, many times. Usually the rotor wash has enough force to suppress even the fountain in the foreground. This being fall, it'll knock a good number of leaves off the trees and blow everybody around. It'll take a pretty sharp bank coming toward us, toward the ellipse, down toward the monuments, and then start its trip to northwest Washington, a slow western bank A trip these pilots, we should add, know well. Any tourist to Washington has seen these helicopters of the HMX Air Wing, the so-called white tops, these beautiful big, though now aged Sikorskys that the government is in the process of replacing over time. And you see there the vertical lift. It will make a pivot now, head out toward the ellipse. Let us just watch these pictures play out on board. Something we could not have dreamt about saying just 48 hours ago. President of the United States, having tested positive for coronavirus, having become symptomatic overnight apparently. Look at the broad lift of those rotors, all under the watchful eye of the counter-assault team on the roof of the White House. Helicopter rotors move individually to pitch themselves to lift up in the air. Captain is on the right-hand side of the cockpit as you're looking at it, first officer on the left. As sunset is close to Washington, they're heading out with the Washington Monument on the left-hand side. We'll look for the other chopper to join them, and I don't think, what is it to Andrews, Nicole, it's like 7 minutes. I think it's probably 5 or 6 out to Andrews, out to Walter Reed.
To Walter Reed, yeah. I mean, it's. I think as others have said, presidents often drive. It's not a long trip, but if there's a need to minimize the exposure that this president has to other people, that might explain the short chopper ride that he's going to take. But yeah, I don't imagine it takes more than 5, 6, 7 minutes. I wonder if Carol Lee is still with us and if she can tell us anything about how Donald Trump emerged from the residence and boarded, if there was anything reportable there.
Yeah, Nicole, according to the pool of reporters who was on the other side of Marine One there, the president walked out of the residence side of the White House at 6:16 p.m. He was wearing a suit and a face mask, and he was followed by his chief of staff, Mark Meadows. He gave a wave to reporters and boarded Marine One and then took off for Walter Reed, as you saw there and everyone witnessed. He will also, when he lands at Walter Reed, the way that the White House press corps protocols work is there is another set of cameras and reporters on the ground there, and they will capture the images of the president, of Marine One landing there, or at least will witness that. So the president is on his way. I'm told it's about a 10-minute flight. It's rather short, as you and Brian noticed, but the president walked out of the West Wing. We're likely to see those images on playback sometime soon. He didn't do it live. This is a different approach to how we usually see the president exit the West Wing or the residence many times. Typically, we see that live, and sometimes he'll stop and talk to reporters. That obviously didn't happen today, but the president was with Mark Meadows, his chief of staff, and he was wearing a mask.
Brian, Carol makes such a good point. A lot of the tape that you and I both have at our disposal for our normal newscasts come from those off-the-cuff press avails that Donald Trump seems to enjoy giving, making that short walk from the residence to the helicopter many days of the week.
Yeah, and still photos indeed are already popping up on social media of the president's walk out to the helicopter. This camera angle, by the way, is from the, I believe, from our controllable camera at the top of the Washington Monument. There are no buildings taller than the Washington Monument in D.C., so it's easier than any other American city to get an unobstructed view of the surrounding confines. It's fairly extraordinary that we can watch most of this flight uninterrupted as he heads over. But you're right, Nicole, it is usually, here's the video playback of what we just missed. As predicted, the president giving a thumbs up to the cameras with a mask, walking by himself as he is now an active coronavirus patient. There's Mark Meadows. Salute from the Marine officer at the base of the stairs. President usually stops to greet the pilot and first officer. Military aide carrying a briefcase of nuclear codes, because where he goes, so must they. So while sharing an aircraft, while sharing an interior space with an active coronavirus patient, in this case the President of the United States, they are indeed on the same chopper from the Chief of Staff on down. Nicole, that's fairly extraordinary in and of itself.
I'm without words, and I want to bring Dr. Bedelia back and ask what sort of risk of exposure everybody who just got on board that helicopter with the COVID-infected president now faces.
Thanks so much, Nicole. I know one thing I did notice as you saw the other aides walk in, they were wearing potentially higher level respirators than a surgical mask. The last person who just got on that chopper there. And having that higher level quality of mask does provide greater protection, but being in that space, of course, with someone who might be infected does carry a risk. And the one thing that I will say is that what we'd expect now is that when the president lands at Walter Reed, the healthcare workers who greet him will likely be in personal protective equipment, full personal protective equipment, because they will have closer contact with him. They will have to lay hands on him, examine him, potentially transport him. And so that's something we're expecting.